The buzzing city lights danced on the rain-slicked streets as Ethan rushed through the bustling crowd, clutching a bouquet of daisies. It was late, and he knew his mother would be waiting. Tonight marked a year since his father had passed, and Ethan had promised to bring her flowers, his father's favorite, to honor the man who had taught him the value of love and sacrifice. Ethan was a successful businessman, the epitome of the American dream. Yet, his rise to the top had come at a cost. Calls to his mother grew shorter, and visits became rare. But tonight, guilt and longing gnawed at him. He promised himself he'd make it right. As he reached her modest suburban home, Ethan was met with an eerie silence. The warm glow of the living room lamp was absent. Knocking on the door, he felt a pang of worry. "Mom," he called as he stepped inside. The house smelled faintly of lavender, her favorite scent. His voice echoed in the quiet space. Then, on the dining table, he saw it, a note in her familiar cursive handwriting. "Dear Ethan. Don't worry about me. I've gone to see a friend. I didn't want you to feel obligated to visit tonight. I know you're busy. Love, Mom." Ethan's chest tightened. He slumped into a chair, staring at the note, a rush of memories flooding back. He recalled her hands, calloused from years of working double shifts to put him through college. He remembered how she stayed up late sewing his torn shirts so he wouldn't feel embarrassed at school. And he remembered the nights his father would sit him down and say, "Son, no matter how far you go in life, never forget who lifted you up." A sharp knock on the door jolted him from his thoughts. It was Mrs. Henderson, the elderly neighbor. "Ethan," she said softly, "I thought you should know, your mother often talks about how proud she is of you. But tonight, she mentioned feeling a little lonely." Ethan's heart sank. He quickly grabbed his car keys, determination coursing through him. Mrs. Henderson added, "She might be at the park. She loves sitting by the old oak tree, remembering your dad." When Ethan arrived at the park, the rain had slowed to a drizzle. Under the oak tree, he saw her, a frail figure clutching a small photo album. Her shoulders shook as she wiped tears from her face. "Mom," Ethan said, his. She looked up, startled, then smiled weakly. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" He dropped to his knees beside her. "I came to say I'm sorry. For being so wrapped up in my own life. For not being here when you needed me most." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she placed a hand on his. "Oh, Ethan, you don't need to apologize. I've always understood. You were chasing your dreams. That's what your father and I wanted for you. But at what cost?" Ethan asked, his voice trembling. "I forgot the most important lesson Dad ever taught me, never forget your parents." At that moment, Ethan realized the bouquet in his hand. He placed it beside her. "These are for you, Mom. And so is the rest of my time." From that night on, Ethan made a promise not just to himself but to the memory of his father and the unwavering love of his mother. He visited her every week, called her every evening, and even brought her to live with him when her health began to decline. Years later, at her memorial, Ethan stood before friends and family, holding that same photo album she had clutched under the oak tree. "My mother taught me the greatest lesson of all. Love is not just in the big gestures but in the small, everyday acts of remembering, caring, and showing up. Never forget your parents because they never forget you." The room fell silent as tears welled up in the eyes of those gathered. Ethan closed the album, his voice steady yet full of emotion. "Tonight, I honor her and every parent who sacrifices their dreams so their children can have theirs. Let us always remember where we come from." The applause was thunderous, but it was the quiet nods of understanding that mattered most to Ethan. His heart was full, and for the first time in years, he felt truly at peace.